Parental leave in the United States sucks. The policies for parental leave in the US are infamous for being some of the poorest in the world, particularly among other well-established and wealthy countries. Most parents living there are aware of the struggle to get sufficient benefits for their leave, or the frustration of going through multiple governmental processes just to get less than ideal financial aid. Almost half of US employees aren't eligible for FMLA, the only nationwide parental leave policy there, and even then, it doesn't provide the paid leave that is essential for families' well-being. As a result, the only government-mandated parental leave policy in the United States is extremely ineffective. It's inaccessible, and the financial and emotional well-being of many families is negatively impacted because it lacks the guarantee of paid leave. Okay, so what is FMLA, this inferior parental leave policy? It stands for the Family and Medical Leave Act, and it provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid, job-protected leave a year to employees who are giving birth to a child, caring for a newborn child, adopting a child, or caring for family members, or themselves, in the case of a serious health condition. The catch is that while FMLA applies to public agencies and all elementary and secondary schools, it doesn't apply to companies under 50 employees, or if those employees are farther than 75 miles from the company location. Basically, it excludes many different forms of employees that may work remotely, or for less staffed businesses. Additionally, the employee has to have worked with the employer for at least a year, accumulate a minimum of 1,250 hours of work in that time, which excludes part-time workers, and time taken off work because of pregnancy complications can be counted against the 12 weeks of leave. In short, FMLA doesn't apply to nearly enough of the US workforce to be effective. An estimated 44% of Americans were ineligible in 2018 due to not working enough hours, the worksite size, or both. This data from the U.S. Department of Labor highlights how truly unequal and inaccessible parental leave is for so many millions of the American population. Moreover, in a survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2000, 77% of employees who needed but couldn't take FMLA-protected leave cited financial reasons. That not only implies another barrier between Americans and taking parental leave, this time impacting lower-income families, but also presents a downside of not providing paid leave for workers. Speaking of unpaid leave, let's talk about how the US being one of very few major countries without national paid parental leave is a huge issue. Making parental leave unpaid results in even less access to time off for people with lower incomes, and is horribly detrimental to the well-being of the American populace. This is partly because, when the government doesn't mandate paid leave for employees, the support new parents need falls onto numerous other less efficient and reliable methods. State-level legislation or paid sick leave, individual employers, disability payments. You can imagine how this patchwork of benefits isn't sustainable or accessible for all Americans, let alone for any single parents or lower-income households. Most private employers are unlikely to pay for their employees' familial leave, least of all low-wage workers, who are the ones who often can't afford their own leave in the first place, which renders parental leave an inaccessible and ineffective system for lower-class American families. Even when families can afford to take unpaid parental leave, or have to take the leave despite not being able to afford it, it takes a toll on the financial well-being of the family. And this isn't a small issue. Many families feel the effect of no national paid leave. Around half of 2024 married couple families relied on dual income to support themselves and their children, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the cost of living is only getting higher. The living wage calculator shows that every single state has a much higher living wage than minimum wage. Furthermore, in places like California, where population size is huge and prices are steeper, the cost of living for one adult is $30.48, while the minimum wage is $16.90. If 2 adults want to start a family there and raise a kid, but only 1 adult is working, the livable wage is far steeper than minimum wage at $48.66. You might be thinking, but not every employee is paid minimum wage. And you would be right, but missing the fact that many Americans still wouldn't have livable wages for themselves, much less for a new child, much less savings for 12 weeks of unpaid parental leave. Also, there are far more minimum wage workers than you might think. In 2021, 1.1 million workers had wages at or below the federal minimum wage, which is a number that requires far more consideration when evaluating the harm of the USA's unpaid parental leave policy. So, unpaid leave sucks, and families suffer financially for it. But there's yet another reason why unpaid leave harms people's well-being. That reason is anxiety, the emotional stress that often arises from having an unreliable, reduced, or non-existent source of income during such a vulnerable time. Through interviews performed by Human Rights Watch, numerous women attested to the fact that unpaid parental leave, after they'd given birth to a new child, was extremely difficult to manage and threatened their family's emotional well-being. The following is a recount from Christina S. It was very stressful. We used a food bank when we had my 3rd son. Paid leave would have reduced my worry about finances and whether we were going to make it. It would have given some security, emotional and financial. In some cases, even despite relying on other cobbled-together benefits, mothers still struggle with the financial anxiety of supporting their new children. Patricia D., who was taking a mere 8-week leave, described her stressful experience on vacation and sick leave pay. By the end of my leave, we were deciding, do we pay the light bill or pay for formula? It's not like parents want a month in Maui. A baby has been born. You need to have money coming in. You can't just rely on vacation and sick time. If the US were to change their parental leave policies to ensure a national standard of paid leave, as well as loosening the requirements for the leave to be more representative of the actual American workforce, then the benefits would far outweigh the costs to do so. Far more than just the welfare of families and access to leave would be improved, and an overwhelming number of countries and studies reflect the economical, social, medical, and educational benefits for better parental leave. However, in the case of the U.S.'s Family and Medical Leave Act, it's clear that the issues of inequality and family well-being are some of the most pressing and require political action. Millions of families are suffering due to the U.S.'s inadequate support for its parents, and it's about time the U.S. stops being an outlier on all the graphs about parental leave.